Where we left off, Darth Vader and Reva are actually chasing Obi-Wan because they got the tracker and the droid, and they're now going to assault the rebel post. So this is where they've ended up after the big rescue. What I really liked about the episode, so I really liked how they used the flashback with Anakin and Obi-Wan doing their lightsaber duels, where it did pose a question because they are training with like real lightsabers. Like, how many people have actually lost limbs or had accidental deaths due to, slippages or accidental swings? Like, that just was a random sort of thought that came into my mind when I could see them training. But I really liked how they established in and they transitioned into those guys actually. Nice reveal for Anakin, foreshadowing all the power play that was happening through the episode by using this sort of power struggle of the master and the apprentice. The third sister, so Reva, we get to learn about her actual backstory, where she gets to finally become the Grand Inquisitor. So Darth Vader does the ceremonial take the knee and actually gives her the nice sort of title, which is a little bit short-lived for her, but there's points where she should have actually fully developed herself in that role, where she still felt like that sort of angry sort of child. But any scene that Darth Vader was in, so he just demanded presence, so you can actually see his like full demeanor. They get to show that everyone, it sort of like stops whatever they're doing and he just commands the screen whenever he's on there. So any shot that he's in, they will generally have a low, having the low angle coming up, so we get to see the power and the dominance that he's actually able to hold. As the Empire are coming into the rebel base, like they're all coming down. They have the big one-liners, so they give Darth Vader the one-liners, and then they switch into the stormtroopers all in their full like uniforms, in their organised patterns, so they're all there, they're getting the lineup, and then Reva walks out. Like, everything about that whole scene was really cool, to the point where they've got their cannons ready, but Reva, as she comes in, she should have not sort of screamed. She just screams the commands, which takes away from her presence in the actual scene, where it doesn't sort of show her command that she has, that she should command, but she should have just drawn her lightsaber and sort of like directed them to start the assault, rather than just screaming at them, because obviously it'd be really hard to hear over the cannon fire. But that's where it should have happened, and that would have allowed her to have more of that presence. But I know they've sort of led her to be sort of that angry child, which all sort of comes in right at the end. They're in there. Tanner is actually there shooting. Obi-Wan's finally using his force push. Like when Reva gets into the tunnel, he uses his force push and she goes flying, and just the camera switches to her flying back and the soldiers parting. Like, their reaction time, it's really good to see how they actually are really trained really well. Doing the slow-mo, so they're showing him deflecting bolts, taking out stormtroopers, but Tanner is obviously hurt, and I really like to see the draw over and saves her and is protecting her, where Obi's like in the slow-mo, and you can see his like devastation about her being injured and eventually giving up her own life. You can see, I really liked how they used the slow-mos to it, and they used a few close-ups. They always had Obi-Wan in the background showing his like reaction, trying to get back towards Tanner to be able to save her, but then she, like, the door closes and she detonates the bomb, essentially giving up her life, because after that she has a deep and meaningful with Obi about trying to always save people, and she has the little notches on her gun belt. So I really liked how that all tied in. That was really cool. When Darth Vader just walks in, so they've cleared everything out, Darth Vader's walking in, and you just get to see his raw power. So like, he just comes in and he's flinging doors open with his force powers, and he just grabs the ship like it was nothing, force powers it down, and just rips it apart with his force powers. Like, that was insane to see how much power over the force he actually does command. Where when Reva, we actually learned Reva's backstory, which was really cool to it all tying in. So my theory was actually finally correct, where she was one of the younglings and she wants to get actual revenge on Anakin. But just to see Darth Vader absolutely just toy with her, in terms of, he doesn't draw a lightsaber, like his lightsaber, at all. He just uses the force powers to just control the battle, dodge and weave, to the point where he takes her lightsaber, splits it, and throws it to her. So he's just playing with her the entire time. And the transitions when he actually stabs her, the transition between the visions of her in the Jedi Temple and to him in real life, like it flicking in between the present and the past. It's a really cool scene. It just flashes across. Like the cinematography of that is fantastic. Just to see how it all meshes up into that full circle. The sheer dominance and power that Darth Vader has, like this is the best portrayal that I've seen of Darth Vader in any of the Star Wars films or any of the TV shows for that matter. There are a number of flaws. Like this was a really strong episode, and they did many things really, really well. The things that I didn't like when Obi finally comes out and they're being signalled that the Empire are coming, like his motivational speech for the crowd there was no emotion, there was nothing in it, like there was nothing to signal, I'm going to deliver you hope. It was just, we need to delay time, I'm going to get you out of here. Like it needed to have a little bit more emotion or a little bit more hope and the desire for these people to be able to get out safely. The droid tracker, the whole way that it's just too convenient for Darth Vader and Reva to track like Obi-Wan. It's just the droid tracker where it then flies in and like closes the hatch. Like all of that's just a little bit too convenient. It's a little bit, how do we do it? It's a little bit cheesy. I didn't really like it. They should have come up with a little bit more of a creative way for that to happen. Like even a double agent would have been better than just the droid tracker. Like wasn't a big fan of that. The number of comic relief scenes in there, like they felt really forced. There's a couple of throwback characters that come in. So the throwback characters are coming in from episode 2 and obviously last episode. So those guys are trying to fight for the comic relief to bring down the tension a little bit, but that tension should have been building. So if they built that tension up better, and it would have been a much better scene for Darth Vader just for his presence to walk on. Like they don't need the comic relief. It's only a 40-minute episode, so they can build that tension throughout. It doesn't need to have that rubber band effect. I just want them to build that tension rather than forcing that comic relief on us. Stormtroopers are assaulting the door to be able to barge through. Obi-Wan wants to delay a little bit of time, so he has like a little conversation through the door with Reva, which is weird. Like Reva's standing there and she's listening, but Obi's doing a full hand on the door and sort of, I'm not sure if he's using his force powers to sort of, like read her mind or anything, but the way he just stands against the door is a little bit odd, but I did like their interaction in terms of how he was able to work out her backstory, which was finally true in terms of my theory, but then she just stabs her lightsaber in. Like, why didn't she do that to begin with? Why did they have to continually shoot it with the shells and barrels? Like, couldn't she just walked up and, flicked it open and then force pushed everyone away? But I know they needed some dramatic effect, but I felt that would have been a more establishing shot for Reva just to walk in and slice open the door or even force power the doors open. Buy more time where he's like, there's another way to fight, so he like gives himself up, and then there's a little bit of cat and mouse where I feel like Darth Vader could have just landed and he could have just walked through the tunnel and like forced the doors open. He didn't need to signal that they had Obi-Wan and give himself up, but I guess that's where the exchange came, and that's where they learnt that obviously Reva was hunting Anakin. So I guess that was the setup, but I felt like they could have set that up at the door, like they didn't need to sort of come up with the plan. Leia just felt forced in this episode. Like if she didn't really get screen time at all, that wouldn't have been that bad. Like she was just up in the wires, in the controls, looking for the override, and that's where she got the tracker. And like, I don't really care. They could have done that off camera. That shouldn't have been any focal point whatsoever in terms of this episode. At the end, obviously the hologram got dropped by old mate Comic Relief, and Reva then finds it. Obviously she's got a hole in her stomach from the lightsaber, but she does find it, which means obviously next episode somehow that's going to tie in where I'm assuming people are going to end up back up on Tatooine, where I feel like Obi-Wan should have done his one line rather than... So my final thoughts on the episode was, for me, this was the strongest episode, so I really like to see the development of Vader, like his presence and the justice that they've done to him, like just how strong in the Force he is and how much of a presence he's got. that whole being able to, you know, get a little bit more of a backstory on Reva and how Anakin's actions actually affected a number of other people in Order 66, and like just how far that reach has spread and how much he has developed in terms of his force powers. Like, he was always strong even when he was a Jedi apprentice, but just to see his development and just his raw sheer power that he comes on is just incredible. Like, that, if they fixed those flaws, this would have been an almost perfect episode. But even with those flaws, this is still the strongest episode in it. So I really enjoyed it. Let me know what you think about my sort of critiques, and if you like the new style that we're going about. And yeah, you know what to do. Make sure you like, comment, subscribe, and tell your friends.